Okay.
Do you get Tim to like edit out all the
Great.
stutter?
Zero editing.
Oh,
So
okay.
here we are live. So I'd love to welcome everyone, all our Warrior Sage friends and family. I have a very special, very close friend of mine who's been a mentee and a supporter, a longtime practitioner of the path of the warrior, the philosophies of the sage for many, many years, all her life. And we've had the pleasure of working together, collaborating together, learning from each other. And it's a sheer joy to introduce Cynthia Davis. So welcome everyone and welcome Cynthia. Thanks for being here. Um, it'd be wonderful just to share a little bit about who you are and how we've come to this point, please.
I will. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is really, first of all, any opportunity I have to be able to sit with you and just talk and explore and collaborate is always a really good time. So thank you very much for opening the door and making the space to do that tonight. And I liked your introduction where you said it's been on my life and maybe then some, because even since stepping into understanding more about WarriorSage, I felt like I was coming home. So it was when I first met and started to experience all that there was to learn and to be and to do and to be part of what you were about and what you and Suzanne were doing at the time. It was literally like I finally found some place where I can come, explore, and really develop myself, both personally and as a leader and in my business and my whole life. So it's been a great journey.
Thank you. And I know you've had a very illustrious career as a leader in business. Can you share about that? Because many of our folks here are involved in business and changing the world and shifting consciousness in business. So I'd love to hear about that.
Sure, for sure. So interesting, right? My whole journey was about literally following the guidelines, right? Of finishing school, going to college, getting your master's degree and your MBA, and going into the corporate world, and starting at a place where you can then climb that corporate ladder. And really, that was the label that was success for me. So when I looked out at the model of how will I know when I arrived, it would be following those guideposts and, doing what I was supposed to do and getting to that point. And I was very good at it. I was very good at it. And it was the proverbial, I worked very hard. I set goals, I accomplished goals. So I was very good at the doing part. I was very good at the setting a goal and having the willpower. And that was true in sports, it was true in work, it was all aspects of my life. So I became very proficient at the time what I thought was really manifesting. I would probably call it now, the manifestation through a lot of hard work and diligence and willpower, right? Mind power. And so I did do really well. I was in the corporate world for about 25 years of my career, and I advanced to the top levels in the business. I was running multi-million, billion-dollar businesses and big corporations in America and internationally. I did a lot of international work, and it was very interesting because I literally found the antithesis of what I thought was going to be true, that the higher I got, the more prestige the position was, the more responsibility that I had, the more opportunity to be seen that I had was supposed to bring more satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment, whatever term you want to use for that. And it literally was the opposite. It literally was the opposite. It was 180 difference. The more I achieved and kept thinking, well, okay, the next job, that'll be it. The next team, that'll be it, right? And it really started to eat away at me that this was, there was something else. There was something else I really needed to explore personally, and I knew it was an inner, it was something inner. It was a sense of there was something that was wanting to be expressed that in that world, it wasn't happening for me. And so literally, in fact, I'll have to tell you how many people, including my family and my friends, thought that I literally had kind of like had a screw loose when I decided to exit that world and leave, because I was really in a place where I could have, you know, taken it wherever I wanted to. I did, you know, I mean, it was I managed my career very well. I had a really great network, and it was the place where I said, this is something's got to give, and here's the point in my life where that's going to happen. And so I literally left, and you know, I had been doing a lot of personal growth and personal development work for several years. So I knew a lot of the world of personal development and personal growth, and I knew you know, all of the tools and methods, I would say, right, that you learn in those things, which were all good and they all served me really well, but there was still something that I knew there was something more. And when I left, I had the opportunity to explore it. And literally leaving, it was that year that we ended up connecting through WarriorSage.
Wow. Wow, that was the year, right? Same year.
That was the year that, yeah, I started to explore what else was out there, and I wanted to find, you know, I really put it out there, and you know, this to me is divine intervention in so many ways, because I really put it out that, you know, I had heard the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And I put it out there, I needed the teacher. I needed to know where it was that I was going to really start to satisfy that ache that I had, that void that I found, that there was so many things that no matter how many books I read and how many, you know, different seminars I went to, and I did them all, right? I knew there had to be something more. And so it was just, I put it out there in terms of, okay, that, you know, I'm just going to allow the universe to serve it up. And when I'll know it when I see it. And that's why I said when we met, for me, it was literally a sense of, wow, I think I just came home. I felt a connection that I said, I'm not sure what this is about, but I'm ready to explore. So that was a big transformational point in my life. And I've never looked back. I mean, it literally was then the groundwork that I started my own business. So it was, everything started to shift in a different way.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Cynthia. It's like, as you were sharing, I was feeling how many business leaders, you know my opinion around business leaders. I feel that we're the business leaders of the planet, we're the ones who are either steering us towards destruction or moving us into a better reality. And we have more power than politicians. We have more power than religious institutions. Those of us in business positions, we're controlling the main power of the world, which is currency. And where we're coming from, our attitude, our inner disposition, our degree of enlightenment, the depths that we've touched, what gets recontextualized as we go deeper into spirit, if we will, deeper into the unknown, deeper into the metaphysical inner dimensions of being. What happens is naturally there's a rescripting that happens in the external domain, because ultimately metaphysics means that what's within is reflected without. You can put all types of fancy explanations on it, but at the end of the day, the mirror reality is the foundation. Mm-hmm. So I'd love you to share about your experience of that transition, because I'm sure there's business people out there in the world. And I actually also believe that this time right now, very unique time, as we all know in history, that the tenderness, the receptivity, the openness to something deeper, more.
Wow.
Please speak to that.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting.
Like, you were in that world. How did you move over? Like, how did you address that?
It was, well, and it's interesting that you talk about this time. I was just reading an article a few days ago. Literally, it was referring to the fact that in 2019, this is U.S. Businesses, but in 2019, more CEOs resigned from their positions in companies even though those companies were financially successful, I mean, 2019 was a big year in the U.S. Economically, right? So there was a lot of money being made in all industries, and over 1,300 CEOs in 2019 left their CEO position, despite the fact that they were strong in financial performance. To me, that just spoke volumes. That this is a tender time. This is a period of time that I think businesses are in need of a certain type of leadership that I'll call it our grandfather's leadership in business might not have served what's required now, right? And what do I mean by that? And literally, when I was in business, I mean, I brought in so many different kinds of consultants and teachers, and we taught leadership classes, and all the models, right? So there's situation leadership, there's all the different types of leadership courses, and everybody had the answer. But literally, when I think about it, and it's true when I observed it, and even as I was going through it, that the leadership models are based on, I'll call it a horizontal plane, or almost like this plane of polarities, right? So depending on where your beliefs and your values and your philosophy is, you can be a leader in one aspect of belief systems. You can be a leader in another aspect of belief systems. It's still leadership, right? So it's sitting here on the same plane of, and the only thing in that range that's different is, do I have a belief that it should be, profit over people? Do I have a belief that I'm more conservative than liberal, right? But there's leaders in both of those spectrums, right?
Yes.
And a leader is someone who's going to, engage people and get them to follow you and take them to a place where perhaps they haven't been before, or need a leader to take them there, right? And so you attach to the definition of a good leader, most likely based on what you're mirroring. So if I believe in your belief system, if I subscribe to, and am mirroring that same set of values, then I'm going to attribute you're a good leader.
Yes.
And those people over there, they're not a good leader, right? Because they have a different set of values, they're driving a different set of beliefs. What we need now, in my opinion, is really to view it from what you talked about when you said, that deeper place, or that metaphysical place. It's a vertical thing. It's the transcendence of, I'm not this or that, but I get to be in a place of awareness that I can choose whichever is in the range and the wisest thing for the situation I'm in, right? So when you think about being a leader yourself, at least for me, when I think about being a leader myself, I think about the various attributes that show up in my ability to be removed from that polarity, but be at a place of choice, be at a place of making decisions that represent for me the best expression, the wisest choice for the given situation, right? So it's more of a evolution on that vertical plane than just sitting here saying we have leadership models that based on the situation I behave one way or another, or based on my belief I behave one way or another. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So so I literally have not totally dismissed a lot of the old leadership models, but I just don't think that they have the dynamic to really deal with what we are seeing on a planetary level, right, across the planet, that that's required. And I think that a number of leaders are falling short of their ability to actually lead, because they don't have the skills to operate at a different, in that vertical plane. There's nobody sitting there saying, oh, let's go in and do a leadership course that allows you to understand that as a leader, you have a sense of accountability. Okay, what does that mean? I could be, we talk about it in terms of stages, like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So stage 1, I might have more of a, victim mentality, right? Stage 2, I might be more of, well, I'm going to look externally to find out what's going on and who do I blame and how do I, assess the situation in such a way that I can make sure I know who did that and how do we fix it. And stage 3 is more of this is what it is and how in this situation do I make the wisest choice to address it, right? So there's stages in each one of the various leadership attributes that get expressed based on your level of awareness and consciousness of the expression of that. So I think there's so much more.
Absolutely.
To what we really want to start bringing to the table when we talk about leadership.
It's the time for transcendent leadership is what I feel. And transcendent leadership is I feel someone who has integrated these opposites of, let's say, left or right or whatever ideology that creates division, right? For me, an enlightened leader, a transcendent leader, is someone who can have both people be willing to work with them and their direction. And there's an artistry in that, and there's a wisdom. If you notice, the wisest of all beings on the planet, we always admire them. We see them not necessarily for their financial accomplishments, not necessarily for their intelligence capacities, but by them doing the wisest, most powerful thing that creates a ripple that moves us, that brings us into a deeper place of unity, a deeper place of willingness to face the tough stuff. Wisdom brings us into a place where we're making decisions that are taking into account the whole, a wider sphere, not just our own personal needs, not just our companies, but our relationship to the whole. Mm-hmm. And I call this transcendent leadership because it includes everything that we know before. We don't dispel it, but at the same time, we must find a viewpoint that integrates the divisions in our consciousness and in our team's consciousness.
I think integrate is exactly the right word. And, you talk about transcendent leadership, and I love that. I mean, I love when I get the opportunity to read some of the things that you've written about that or that you've talked about that. When I'm in with an organization and I want to start to talk about transcendent leadership and and how do we aspire to being as leaders to lead our business and our teams that way, I end up starting with a recognition that at stage 1, there's very much a transactional an awareness. It's very transactional in nature in business. It's very much perhaps even like a carrot and a stick in terms of motivation of your organization, right? And then stage 2 is more transformative. So in stage 1, in transaction, you may have tasks and you go about, here's my weekly tasks, here's my monthly tasks, here's my month-end review tasks of racking and stacking my financials, right? So it's very task-driven. In stage 2, transformational, you really start to see organizations, and we're seeing a lot of them do this, move to mission-oriented. So they're very mission-focused, right? And that's a good thing to have a common mission, and that does start to help integrate people, and there's more of a quid pro quo in terms of how you get things done. And it's something that, I think a lot of organizations actually aspire to having a mission as opposed to just a mission statement on a wall. And I think that's an amazing step forward and very transformational. I think what you're talking about, though, is moving it even higher to a sense of transcendence, where it's really more having the ability, the wisdom, the intention, to actually integrate everything together. And I'll give you an example in business, right? I was running an organization, and we had certain deliveries and we had to do certain things. And, the team kept coming back to me and saying, Cynthia, what do you want? Do you want all of this, do you want high quality or do you want to meet the numbers and get the quantity, right? And the thing of it is, in a stage 1 or stage 2, I would have made a trade-off. As a transcendent leader, we can have both, right? We can find the way to have both. And it's the same thing with people in profit. Some businesses will say, well, what do are you all about the bottom line and it's not about the people? And you get to stage 2 and it's more mission oriented and say, well, we can make enough profit so that we can give some away and feel good about that, right? And so now I have both. Well, stage 3, your transcendent leader is, now this is an amazing opportunity in an abundant universe that we can express the magnitude of both the way we decide to do that, right? So it's really, to me, I love the fact that a lot of businesses are being very mission focused, but I think in the state of transcendence, it goes even higher. And it goes to that place of wisdom. And it's, I think that as I've watched and studied these amazing leaders that have this ability to tap into that wisdom, one of their attributes is clearly that they're grounded in presence and an understanding that there is something greater than themselves that they have access to and are part of. And that is what really brings the presence and the sense of calm and the sense of wisdom and the sense of ability to integrate without the trade-offs, without the, I've got to have one or the other, or it's this or that. It's not that at all.
In my heart, I'm yearning for this movement, this evolution to come even more rapidly, to be embraced more fully. And I feel it's happening, and I know you and myself and many people on the forefront are working towards this type of, it seems like a very high, sometimes altruistic idealization of what is and what can be, but why not? We've created amazing things. Look at what we can create through business. That already is incredible. To be able to turn that creativity and that organizational capacity, that empowerment, so that the architecture within is also growing us as individuals, is a place that becomes a place that moves people's lives forward, that brings our planet forward, that brings more goodness. You talked about transcendence and mission in the next stage. Well, we work with companies transforming their mission statements from long mission statements, which are dead and flat, and you walk
Right.
by in the hall and means
Right.
nothing, and you pay tens of thousands to consultants to dial it up to sound smart. And but at the end of the day, if it's not evoking spirit,
Right.
if it's not evoking that unified one for all for one, it's flat.
It's flat.
So, what we did with Paul's organization, when we came up with the mission of creating a world that doesn't break down.
I love that. I love that.
It's so potent, and it's still active, a software that detects when things are going to break down in machinery way in advance, and how that was distilled down to creating a world that doesn't break down, because that's the ultimate purpose.
It does, and it pulls you, right? I mean, it's like it actually, those become the organizations where people are allowed to opt in because it draws them into it, right? So it's like, that's something I can really align with. That's something I can subscribe to. That's something I want to take my creative powers and put towards to, bring that about and have that the essence of that mission, expand as far as possible. And I think that's the difference when you start moving up these stages of leadership as well, is that the leader, a transcendent leader, is willing to recognize that the success of what they're about does require people opting in freely, right? So I did a training session for a sales organization in a business, and the whole idea was to help the salespeople become, bring about the kind of skills to obviously increase their performance, right? And it started with really recognizing, doing some personal introspective work, right? And then tying it to the mission of the organization. Well, within 2 months, several of the people in the organization had left. And the business owner, came to me very upset, very disturbed, feeling like, Cynthia, this did not work. Almost a third of my organization is left. And, how am I going to handle this? And it was really a very eye-opener for myself as well. I learned a lot in this process, because what came to me was, well, now we have the opportunity to actually allow to go pick people and allow them to opt into what he was about.
Yes.
And it was when we both realized, and it was kind of a collective realization, that having people on board, that was not what they were meant to be, wanted to do. Their heart wasn't in it. It was a struggle to come in every day. And that's who you have talking to potential customers? No, right? When they got that introspection for themselves and they said, this isn't for me, and I think I'm going to go do something else, and they left, it did two things. We got to actually replace them with people who really wanted to be there and saw that as an opportunity for their own personal growth as well as the growth of the company, right? But it made him like a hero, because the sales went up with less people, right? Because now you've got a team that is so he became a better leader. They became better at what they were doing. And it was that additive, integrative piece of saying, when you can opt in, and it's a heart and a head thing too. It's both, right?
Yes.
It's that's where the magic is. Just showing up because I can isn't good enough anymore.
No, it's not. And unfortunately, much of our business systems, our organizations are set up for the task orientation, the mind orientation. And these are all valuable skills and capacities, and that's what keeps it going. But this engagement of being, I feel it's not even a newfangled thing. Right now, I believe it's actually a necessity. And businesses that don't evolve right now will die actually rapidly, because inner fulfillment, equilibrium, equanimity, balance, having healthy homes, healthy work-life balance is becoming not vogue anymore. It's now, people are recognizing it's a necessity for well-being.
It's a necessity. It is a necessity. I know you speak a lot about and teach us a lot in terms of bringing that balance and equilibrium in our life. And that is really another, duality or polarity that I cringe at when I hear people say, well, I have to have this work-life balance kind of thing, when in fact it's life, and I have to get my whole life in equilibrium, right? Because it's just the idea of individuals, because I think that so many people are internally evolving and just don't know what to do with it, right? I think we're growing as a consciousness on the planet. And I think that the idea that they'll go in to work and, do the kind of, put in the kind of hours and lifestyle that perhaps 20, 30, 40 years ago was considered okay. It's no longer okay, and it's not healthy.
Yes.
And and so I think it is pulling on I think there is an inner struggle that's going on. And it is, when you talk about the leaders in business, they are the ones that literally, in my opinion, have their finger on the heartbeat of so many hundreds of thousands of people who are feeling that there's something that more to be done, or feeling that they need a sense of freedom and fulfillment. But where do you go? What do you do? We need more. We need more business leaders that are at a place of having transcended some of these things themselves, so that they can lead from that place in business.
Oh, what I've noticed in my mentoring work with business leaders, with yourself, with everyone I've worked with, right? Myself, my life experiences, is that many of us have these deeply seated struggle patterns that have been imprinted, where we are drawn unconsciously to live some type of valiant, do or die, battle to the death, burn ourselves at both ends. We're trying to fulfill some type of heroic journey that's neurotic, and we don't even realize it's neurotic, but where the script is imprinted and we're running the script. And some people are starting to wake up to that more and more. And those who have, and they realized that they can actually, and here's what you've noticed this, we've experienced this, we've seen this in our circles, that when people get what we're talking about and are willing to do the inner work to transform these imprints, these outdated stories that drive us, but bring diminishing returns after a while.
Mm-hmm.
The more, the ancient Taoists have been sharing for years, thousands of years, the more you push, the more backlash you'll have. You need to find a new pace that gets you there long, long, long. The Chinese think in 100-year terms.
Yeah, exactly. By the century, they make decisions for a century from now. They're making them now. It's interesting, we think of these little tidbits of sayings, what you resist persists. And you just goes through one ear and out the other, but it's really true, right? It's like you're going to get a backlash from that. The more the more pressure you push to resist a certain thing you do, there's this energetic backlash. So a lot of these, they are imprints. They're sayings, they're, things that we pick up, and, they are very strong imprints. But I would tell you, my experience, Ajahn, is once the bell is rung, that you see there's an opening to step into, and you start to see that you can let go of those, and it is inner work. Once the bell is rung, it's like you can't go back. You can't unring that bell, and it then becomes. And so here's for whoever ends up listening to this, or this goes out to, here's kind of the disclaimer at the bottom is once that door's open and you start, it's a journey that's going to just pull you in. You're just going to want to, because because looking back is, you've been there. I know that. It's like, okay, I'm kind of done with that. So whether it's the, new awarenesses of these imprints, or new awarenesses of, behavior patterns and things, as you become conscious of them, there's a way to now to start to let it go and to transcend it and to move past it. And once you start down that path, it says, hey, I can't go back. There's nothing that will take you back.
And you know what the miracle is? When we start to release these struggle and chaos patterns, emerges a new coherence.
Yes.
There emerges a new patterning within ourselves, that even the architectures of our business design, even boiling it right down to, even if you have to think of what is my next marketing design, how are we going to do it? Everything just becomes simpler because it's not going through a complicated mind. It's coming out through a mind that is clear, fresh, spacious. And so the solutions become easier. And this is the way we do it in jiu-jitsu and martial arts. We're trying to have less moves. Chess is like that, least amount of moves to get the most amount of effect. It should be the same in business. The least amount of moves to create the most amount of effect. And if we can create the moves internally, they reflect externally, then we have teams that are energized, not burned out.
Exactly.
We have teams that are supporting each other's significance and raising each other's reputation, rather than stepping on each other's or unconsciously trying to cut each other's significance off so they can be seen themselves. All these games go away when we're in transcendence.
Isn't that beautiful? That's really true. And it's again, it's kind of the transcending an imprint, because we grew up to those positions of being a leader or running our own business, or running, having a large responsibility for a lot of people and a lot of money. And so much of it was by the fact that, you're so intelligent, you're so, you've got a good brain, you can think about, I say, and so we pride, at least I did, right? There was a certain amount of ego that was attached to the fact that, well, she's pretty smart, right? It's the pattern for me was to recognize just, I have to let all that go. And it's almost like, okay, can it bypass all of that? And then get to that place of it's like a simple reveal is how I would express it, right?
Love
It's
that.
like it reveals itself and you just sit there and you go, oh, and it's like you said, all of those moving parts and mechanisms and things that you think you had to think about to find out how, or you're right. It's like it all goes away. It's like ice melting in water, right? It becomes it's just it's just like a breathe, a breath. And the struggleness of trying to think it out, work it out, all that's gone. All that's gone. It really is. And it's not like, I mean, it's not like I don't, and I think you would agree, right? It's not like, oh, I have a business issue I have to address, or I have some things that I have to, take care of. And there's action that you want to take. The difference is, I think, from my perspective, is that it's no longer about reacting to what's in front of me, right? It's no longer about just being I'll do this, I'll do this. The reaction mechanism is literally the pattern that got you to where you are, right? If you're going to someplace that you haven't been before, then it's an opening to the unknown and responding to that when it shows up. Yeah, and it really is kind of interesting to me, even from my own perspective, to watch my own behavior of one where I would sit and want to figure it out versus now I can put it out there, know that I'm kind of working on it in background mode, or it's kind of, and there is a reveal becomes very obvious, right? It bypasses all that. Some people call it your monkey mind, right? It bypasses all that stuff. And then you get to really use your brain for the creative stuff, right? You're not using it for the burnout work stuff. It's like now you can use it to be creative and to express, and very different
And to do
style.
all of that, we need to, there is effort required for sure. So we're not advocating some type of airy-fairy, effortless space. No, effort is definitely required, but not the struggle. Effort or struggle is effort that's laced with negative emotion.
Yes. Nice way of putting it.
Another metaphor I like to use and feel is when we're moving from the old paradigms of how we operate, we're willing to take the risk. If we look at a stick shift car, not too many people have them anymore, but I certainly remember mine. And so, if I'm in first, I go in first, it takes me out of the stop and it gets me out of there fast and quick and solid. It wouldn't work if I'm in fifth gear. It's not the best thing to do, or fourth or third. You start in first. But if you over rev it, you're going to go there's a point where you have to put neutral. You've got to kick into neutral. You have to shift gears and then realign and then let go of neutral, engage again. But now with less effort, you're going further and faster.
Beautiful analogy.
And then that happens again. And then that happens again. Then we get to places in our relationships, places in our business leadership where we're like, okay, we're now putting a lot of gas. And we think there's no other shift that can happen. We think that if we go in neutral, or we withdraw, that everything's going to fall apart. In fact, it's when we go in neutral that the next gear arises.
Yes.
And then you click in and you realize, oh my goodness, I can go even way faster and cruise in this fifth, sixth gear with so much less effort than it took in the first, second, and third gear. But we have to have that within our own being. We have to have the willingness to go to that place where we're willing to go into that neutral stick shift. That's the place that's the warriorship. That's the part that I realized. That's the difficult part, that little in-between place.
Yes.
You have to work the artistry of it.
Yes.
You got to be able to face the parts inside yourself that are addicted or find safety in the pushing and the revving at the previous gear. Let go of the revving of the previous gear to find the freedom of the new gear.
That's an amazing analogy, and I love the warriorship of it because there is a bit of courage to just say, okay, I'm gonna let go here and see what happens when I go to neutral, right? I mean, there is a bit of a trust, a courage,
Faith.
faith, yeah, because it can feel like a free fall, right? I mean, because at least for myself and a lot of my colleagues, and I mean, you manage every detail of everything, right? And so now it's like I'm going to go into neutral, and before I shift into the next higher gear, that's not the imprint that we have, right? I mean, that's not the program that's been going on for 30, 40, 50 years of our life, right? So it does take faith. It does take a willingness to, and I think that's for me, when I say, hey, I connected with you, I connected with the WarriorSage community. It was literally the opportunity to surround myself where I could see that I was in a safe place to have that experience, or to allow myself to cultivate that for myself, right? It's not like anybody's can do it for you, not at all, right? But I think the thing of it is to be able to put yourself in a place where you're surrounded with a support structure, and I don't mean, this is another thing, this is interesting to me, because I think transcendent leaders, they surround themselves with others that have that they aspire to experience and to be with, right? I mean, so I'm not talking about hanging out with your peer group, right? That's what stage one, that's what transactional leaders do. They stand around in a coffee shop, right, or the water cooler, and they talk about everything that's going wrong in the business, and ain't it bad for you, and ain't it bad for you, right? That's not what I'm talking about. And I'm also not talking about what I'd call stage two in transformational leadership style, where it's all about the networking, because there again, you're networking, kind of in your same flock of geese, right? No, if I want to actually go to a place that I really haven't been, and I know this is going to take some courage and trust, I want to be with those who have been there, who are going there, who are aspirational, who have demonstrated this way of living in their life and being a leader like this in their life. I want to surround myself with those kind of people, and always will, right? And I think that's a key difference for a transcendent leader is always going to be in that space of, again, it's like the mastery. It's like, where else? You don't look back. It's a constant growth. It's a constant evolution. And I think that they're always on that journey. And I want to be with those that are on that journey.
It's very liberating when you're with those who are in that company.
Yeah.
It's like every day becomes a surprise. Life becomes more alive, worth living, mysterious, revealing itself. We come out of the mechanistic every day, every week, every month, the same old routine, and we start being exposed, and the mystery, the divine forces, if you will, start showing themselves up. And we get to see that whatever control that we think we have as a leader is only part of a grand control beyond anything that we can control.
Isn't that the fallacy? That's again, I mean, that's kind of the fallacy that the transcendent leader has to let go of, is the idea that you actually have any control. It's like that in itself. I think some people call it an illusion. I think that's in itself. But you know what? We also, we can be in those environments, but we also have to come, we come back and we run our businesses, or we engage with other businesses and teammates and suppliers who may not be in that same space that we are. But I think it's also different, because we come back and we can be in a place of just more open understanding. There's not a place of judgment. It's not a place of, you can deal with others in a way that might actually have them look and say, well, whatever it is that you're doing and the freedom that you seem to be having in your life and how you live your life and how you express yourself, I want that too, right? I mean, to me, that's like music to my ears, right? So I think that as we are working with other people in our businesses, it's an uplifting, the opportunity for us now to uplift, to be that transcendent leader, to be that example. And, just like I said, everybody has to do it for themselves. But if we could be the leaders that are carving a path or showing a way or opening a door or being an example or being the presence, just being in the presence of some of the people that we have the opportunity to be with, you just know there's something different going on, right? I mean, it's true, right? It's if I'm in your home, right, there's something different going on. When people come to my home, they say this is like there's something different going on, and they might not have a name for it or know how to put, but that to me is the way of the transcendent leader.
Thank you, Cynthia. For us to come to a completion today, I'd love for you to share with us, what do you feel is in your heart to share to us warrior sages, us in the world who feel that we have some stepping up to do, or we're on the path, and what's your good energy for us today?
More and more, especially over the last couple of years of my own journey, I have felt that leaders who have been given the opportunity to step into a place like this, to learn, to experience, have more and more of a responsibility to be out there and expressing it. And for me, when I first started on this journey, I did not want to go back into business and use a word like transcendent or use a word like metaphysical, or use I didn't want to use any of the language of that we might say even everything's in divine order, or I didn't want to use certain language. And now it's like, no, we can't do that. It's not, we can't hide our candle under a little shade and say, well, I've got it and I'm on my journey and it's bringing me fulfillment in my life, and that's not presence and that's not expressing it. And so what I have on my heart is, how do I step up for that? Because I know that I didn't take my journey the way I did for me to hide out. It's like, I know I didn't, right? And I think that there's so many others that in the WarriorSage community and the extension of the WarriorSage community, that it's time for us to really be bold in how we show up, in a very loving, in a very caring way, in a non-judgmental, without a sense of attaching to any expected outcome, but being the expression of who we are in our fullest. And it's I think businesses are ready for it. To me, when I see CEOs stepping out of their positions and leaving companies and leaving businesses, there's something going on. Either they're looking for something else and they don't feel equipped to handle the dynamics that are going on in business, right? I mean, and there's a need for leaders like ourselves in this community to, wherever we are on the journey, right? I mean, I continue to learn, but wherever we are on the journey, we got to show up. We got to start showing up. And I'm saying that to myself as much as I'm saying it to anyone else, because, it's like, I wasn't going to go back into the corporate world and talk transcendent leadership. And, and yet I'm going to tell you something. We put together a program. It was called Transcending Business as Usual.
Yes.
It was the most exhilarating opportunity to work with entrepreneurs and business leaders. And it was the most transformative opportunity for them to see themselves as a leader, and the opportunity that they have to show up in a bigger way and make an impact on their business and the people in their business and the lives of the people in their business. And it was the most fulfilling experience.
I'm so glad you're doing this work in the world. You're raising the bar. You're bringing people to the heart of love and truth and bring this into organizations. Cynthia, how can our friends get in touch with you? And I know you have books too and such. How can they get in
I
touch with you?
do. I do. Actually, it's interesting because the first book I wrote was actually on 6 key leadership principles. And I had nowhere the depth of understanding about them when I first wrote the book that I do now, because it's an experience, because it's going deeper on each one of these principles, right? It's going deeper. But I actually, not too long ago, I picked it up to read it because I thought I would do a rewrite of it, and which I'm pretty sure I'm going to go do. But I read it and I said, whatever got channeled through me at that time, that was beyond me. And it was really just a pleasure to read, and it's going to be a pleasure to now write it from the transcendent leadership perspective, and just add some more, add the depth that these principles deserve, and hope that rewrite of it can be something that others would be able to use in their own work and take into their own businesses. But my partner Bill and I, we have a company, Radiant Blue, and Radiant Blue works in the defense industry. You know that we work in aerospace and defense, and we have such an opportunity to go into these businesses that have talk about imprints. So we've been doing some pretty phenomenal work with them, and our business just continues to grow. And just recently, we decided that we were going to take it to the next level, because our business has grown by word of mouth, through reputation, through referrals, and year over year, since since Bill and I've gone on some amazing journeys and trips with the WarriorSage community. And every time we come back, we take our business to the next level. And we just really sat down and said, this is a time where what we do and the way we do it is almost it's got to be done this way in this industry. And we have to change the paradigm of how it's being done.
Yes.
And that means bringing people on the team that are of like mind and heart and can do this kind of work in the way that we do it. And it means going in and doing more of the kind of work, both collaboratively and doing mentorship, but also some training programs with the leadership teams. And it's so far that we've been doing it, it's been amazing. We just need to, now we're gonna just do more of it. So we've got some really amazing growth plans. And I know Bill was wanting to share some of that with you at some point in time. But yeah, so Cynthia Davis at Radiant Blue Group is our business. And yes, reach out anytime. And the WarriorSage community is always welcome for a conversation. Send me an email, pick up the phone, always welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's just, I always love being with you. We've had and continue to have such great adventures, our families, and we're allied for a lifetime. So I'm very grateful for you and all that you live and share and embody. You're one of the greatest students I've ever met. You're a great leader, but you're also an amazing student. Your willingness to learn, absorb, and implement and try it out in your own internal system and make good of it, it's extraordinary. So you have so much to share, and I really want to acknowledge that. And everyone who's been here today, all Warrior Sages, thank you so much. This is rich here. This is a rich, not only lessons for the mind, but invitations for the heart and callings of spirit for us to enter however we discuss it. We're calling it transcendent leadership. However you experience this, it is our perfect time. So please use this sharing to dial up, to wake up, and to express more of the power of the leader that you actually are. All my love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.